So, hi everyone, this is Vivek Shrivastava. Welcome to my channel, Journey of an Entrepreneur. And today we have a special guest episode for you. We have Job Phillips with us, who is the founder of a very fascinating AI startup. So, hi, Job. Thanks for joining us today. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of valuable information and insights from you. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your startup?
Thank you so much, Vivek, for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. I don't know how much you or the listeners know about our company. So, AI, we started this AI company before AI was a buzzword. We started the company in 2018, and we've been working on the computer vision part of AI from 2019 onwards. I come from the same background as many of these startup tech entrepreneurs are, or at least the deep tech entrepreneurs are. I went, did my engineering from IIT Bombay, but then took a different route of doing MBA. I did my MBA from IIM Lucknow and for 14 years spent time on the finance side. First 7 years as an investment banker and then 7 years on the private equity side. It was during those time that in one of the investment deal that I was evaluating, that I had an opportunity of going to China a few times. Looked at some of the things that were happening there. Very interesting stuff. There were things on the facial recognition side, etc., which you saw firsthand in China. That is what inspired me. Came back, connected with few of the friends, thought about how can we bring some of this stuff in India. And the answer was that while these are happening in China on the hardware side, that you have a software or an AI bundled onto the hardware, like a CCTV doing facial recognition. We should from India do it as on the software side. That we should build the building blocks which can work on any video stream and can give you the same sort of influences. With that premise, we started in 2018. First few years were very difficult, but by God's grace, I think today we might be the largest computer vision company from India. We have offices in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and we just recently started US operations as well. So that is in a nutshell what our journey has been.
Wonderful. That's great. I so tell me how did you realize or when did you decide that working at the job wasn't really for you and you wanted to be an entrepreneur? What was that moment for you?
Okay, so um,
Because I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
sorry,
sure.
for me,
Please go ahead.
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I just
Okay.
never could get the combination of idea and financing and funding and this and that aligned properly. So it's kind of only now that I'm doing that. So I'm just was curious about that.
Understood. So this was, since the time I came out of IIT, wanted to be doing something on my, as on an entrepreneurial basis. In 2010, I started a website called sportsforindia.com. I am a racket sports freak, and I thought I would do something on the racket sports e-commerce side.
Uh-huh.
That didn't go anywhere. That was a failed execution. So as a concept, entrepreneurship, I don't know why I always wanted to do it, but as far back as I remember, I always wanted to do it from the
Nice.
time I finished my engineering. The failed one in 2010 gave me few insights on what I should be doing better next time. The
Right.
idea should be robust, it should be scalable, or the base material should be stacked, etc., etc. Right. So some of those mistakes is what I eliminated in my second innings, starting 2019. Uh, but as a concept, what I want to do anything in entrepreneurship. It's not that I was, hell bent that I should do something in AI.
Right.
I started first by focusing on my passion, which was sports. Tried doing something on sports. That didn't work. Thought the idea
Was
on
it
AI
was
side.
it like a e-commerce kind of thing for sports or
Yes,
okay?
yes, yes. It was an e-commerce thing, but mostly on sports goods side.
Equipment, like
Equipment side, and specifically because the challenge for sports good equipment is that what fits me. wouldn't necessarily fit you.
Right.
So we wanted to have some sort of consultative process. That if you want to play tennis, if you are a beginner, you should try these racket. Idea was to give you access to some of those rackets for you to try it out, and after a week you can choose whatever racket you want to do, etc., etc. Ideas were good. The execution was
Right.
patchy.
Oh no, I believe me, I've run into pretty much every problem in the book along the way for me. So, and we'll talk about all of that. I'll ask you about because I've faced those things myself. How you said you got the idea from your trip to China, but why? How did you specifically go with the AI idea? Because China, I mean, there's so many things going on there. So you must have seen many things besides just AI. So how come AI? Like and zeroing in on that particularly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so it sounds very fascinating that this is what we thought and this is what we ended up doing.
Huh.
Life rarely works in a smooth straight line.
Yeah.
So I came back thinking that there is a way to do something on a broad range of AI hardware stuff that doesn't exist in India. One of my batchmates and close friend and co-founder now, he was getting out of the startup. He had sold his stake in the startup, and he was looking for the next gig.
Right.
I contacted him. He started, and for a year and a half, I funded him while I was on the job. Um, to explore the range of options that we had, kind of listed down. So it wasn't only AI, it wasn't really computer vision, it wasn't only AI in B2B, the niche, sub niche, etc. that we are now into. That is not how it was. For a year and a half, there were six, seven things that he was, kind of checking off the list, and finally where we ended up is what we ended up doing. So rarely I've seen, even not only my experience but my a lot of my friends experience, rarely would people think of that this is what we want to do and that's what we end up doing. That was surely the case with us as well. It was a group of things, serendipity, luck.
Right.
First break that we got, the COVID hit, and that's when some of the AI needs
Right.
accelerated. So hence we thought that this is the path that we will take, etc., etc. None of that was our doing. We had an idea. We were working towards few things, but this is what clicked, and then we, kind of started doing only this.
Right. Right. So, what Uh, can you tell us a little bit about the early days? You said something about how you were still working and funding your friend and classmate, and so how did that then evolve? Did you eventually? I guess you gave up your regular job and started doing this full time. Yeah, go ahead.
So it was in 2018 that my friend and the other co-founder Nitin, who started this, and we were about three four people, and the idea was simple that whatever money among the three four of you spend, I will finance all that. So to give you a sense, in the first year and a half that they went about exploring what all can we do, I spent about 50 odd lakhs, which is what I was, kind of financing them with. Some of the hard decisions on what happens if we decide to do it together, those were all taken upfront. Like, for example, the stake. I would be owning 60, he would be owning 40. What will happen, if we do this, that, etc., etc. Those hard kind of decisions were taken beforehand so that those were not left to chance. But what actually would we be ending up doing, that was something which kind of evolved in the year and a half that we were doing. For that year and a half, there was also business that Nitin was doing. Getting some stuff from China, selling it in India, and making some money, in the market. So to that extent, if you look at our P&L, we were profitable from year one. So not only the funding, but also from the actual business, we tried to generate as much cash as possible so that we are not entirely at the mercy of how people think about us.
Right.
And I came on board end of 2019, and even then when we got into AI, we were profitable. Each project that we were doing, so at least on the software side, you can make 80% gross margin. So it was 80% gross margin. If we are making good money from a project, that's when we would do the next hire and stuff like that. So by end of 2021, we were about 17 people, which is when we took our first seed round funding. Um and that seed round also came not from a blue-blooded angel investor or anybody. Few investors were willing to put, but my first while CEO from ICICI Venture, whom I reported for 7 8 years, he is the one who put in a largest check, about $1 million to get us started.
Nice. So how did you
Uh,
know this person? Did
he was the CEO where I was. I worked for 7 years in the private equity.
right? Okay,
So he was the one whom I reported it to.
got it. Got it.
So while there were funds who were interested in doing some of the
Right.
initial check size, we were looking at about a couple of $1 million. I went for his advice and he said, "Why are you doing that? They will push you into doing stuff which you may be too early to do. What is the amount of money that you require? Why don't I come in and put in a maximum big amount of that?" And he put in $1 million plus of his own personal money,
Nice.
not from a fund, but his own personal money. And then, our plan was to expand into US. So the person who joined us in US, he wanted to come in as a co-founder. He put in $500,000 of his own money so that he gets a stake and
Right.
comes in as a co-founder. So he's the third co-founder that we have in the organization now. And our biggest client at that point was a company called Arya. They have seen what we do. They put in another $500,000 for 5% stake. So
Nice.
together, all three of them put in $2 million, and that was the best $2 million that we took because we made ton loads of mistakes, but we learned by every mistake. Nobody pushed us to kind of
Right.
accelerate the learning or
Yes.
accelerate revenue, stuff like that. All of them have built businesses themselves. They know how challenging it is. There was no playbook for us to go by.
Right.
Computer vision companies from India, kind of for first one, right?
Right.
Especially, this is in 2019, 20, etc. When it's not that AI was well understood. So to that extent, how do we sell it? How do we make the product robust? To how do we make sure that customer don't churn? How do we integrate inside the customer premises?
Right.
Those are all opportunities. We have lived it ourselves. There was no playbook, but we have lived it ourselves. We took more time than what it should have. But because the investors were some sort of friends,
Right.
uh, we got a long rope to experiment and to fail and to improve.
Nice, nice. Now, let me ask a little bit about this. Now, I think the viewers will be really interested in this because getting funding is always challenging, and we, uh, I'm sure everyone will want to know more about it. Including me at a personal level myself. So you had said that the first person, your supervisor at the company you had worked at, was the one who put in the $1 million. But how did you get to the other two? You said that they were friends, or did you have to kind of do some calling and approaching and get some rejections before you finally found these?
Okay. Um, in a nutshell, it's 25 years of hard work because,
Right.
I'll build a background to it. I started the company with a friend with whom I went to IIT.
Huh.
And now that's a 20-year-old friendship, right?
Right.
He, after selling it, came together and decided to work with us. So it's good karma to, whatever you do, etc. The first investor was the CEO whom I reported to for 7 years.
Right.
With no expectation that he's going to be our first investor. But if you do whatever is on your plate at that, and do it well,
Right.
some of these things will have a tendency to repay you back.
Right.
So that's 7 years of work. So he knows me as well as anybody could know a person. And plus, of course, there was merit in the idea. So his first $1 million check came in 5 days. From the time I met him to the time he invested was five
Nice.
days.
Nice.
I met him on a Friday, and by next Wednesday or Thursday, the money was in our account. The third person who invested was the person with whom I went to MBA. So he was my batchmate from I am, and he was working in a data analytics company in US. So
Oh,
that is again 20 years of friendship.
right, right. He was a friend too. Okay,
He was a friend too, and came with relevant experience that he was heading the latent views US business.
nice.
So he was looking about it from what next in life. He was doing that for 12 years. He's done very well for himself, but at least to trust somebody with taking the next chapter of his life, that is 20 years of good faith friendship.
Right,
The other person, who $500,000, they were our biggest customer. So we were serving that customer for about a year.
oh,
Uh, they
nice,
they wanted to take a 5% stake when we were doing the round. So
nice.
customer, 20 years of friendship, my boss,
Wow,
and
that is
that
just
is
so perfectly like a fairy tale almost kind of thing. Because and it just shows the power of networking, because you should network as much as possible, in my opinion, and always be increasing your number of your network as well as the quality of your network. And a lot of times people maybe get so busy they don't do that. you know for example, I'm so busy with my startup, it's basically 24/7 almost what I'm doing. But then I also make sure that I increase my the quality of my networking, and connect with people who you never really know when somebody might end up being the right person for that moment. So for years and years you may not be in contact or whatever, you're doing different things, but then at that one moment he's the right person for you. So wow,
yeah.
that's absolutely amazing. Because a lot of times, people, they'll go to these pitching at venture capital funds and various angel investor types and so on and so forth. So they and then they of course have limited success with that. And then, as you mentioned, when you get that sort of thing, those people may not share the same vision as you. So they, like you said, they'll force you to do things that you may not want to do, or that may not be right for the business, just because they are coming at it from a different angle. So yeah, I mean, that was amazing. And it sounds like you're being generating cash flow, so you funding isn't even that, like, you don't need sort of future funding in a desperate kind of way or anything. So that's really great. Um, so tell now that we've talked a bit about funding, what were some of your how do you get people going? Because I think you said initially you had about 17 people, and I think now you have what, 200? Did you say, or something like that? Or
No, 65.
I'm sorry.
65.
65. So yeah, so personally speaking, and the reason I bring this up is I had a very difficult time getting the right people. I people claim to be very good, and I hired them, and then they end up not being quite as good as they claim to be, and that sort of thing. So could you speak to some of the challenges you had with staffing and hiring people, and even not even people but even third parties?
Okay. The first few critical hires, we made painstakingly, stalking them on LinkedIn and stuff, right? So it wasn't a referral or kind of a cold interview. It was us reaching out to them through LinkedIn, etc., and kind of inviting them to come work with us. Those are the first few employees. They are our co-CTOs, etc. to take while they're grown up. So it is to a large extent, on the back of it that we have had whatever success that we have had. After that, it became a matter of having policies to processes to all those kind of things. Like for example, today we know what is the type of person that we are hiring. Right? We are not going in blind. We actually have, if I talk about tech, there are 5 layers in our company, and in that 5 layers, where anybody who fits in, what is the sort of skill that that person needs to have? It's all well defined. What's the pay that he or she will get? That's also well defined. What's the ESOP? So there is an ESOP at every level in tech. Having that helps because it helps us process information much faster. At least we believe that we are very data-driven company. At least I am absolutely don't make any claims for the fact that I can understand people or any of those kind of things. I don't. But for me, I can understand data. When the decision making is simple, broken down into what are we doing at this level, you are supposed to know this. At this level, you are supposed to know this. Do you have that requisite skills? Once they come in, there is a training module. That training module is basically 30 hours of instructions that we have recorded ourselves,
Nice.
right? And now that they need to go through that 30 hours of recorded videos, they are given a project on which they would be the junior most, working on hardware devices, etc., etc. We let them, kind of grow. But that doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. We make ton loads of mistake,
Right.
but it is just with every such iteration, we take that, we try to incorporate that in any form and manner in a data form. That
Right.
what does this mean? Why did this happen? Did we not communicate it well? Was it not shared well?
Right.
Why is that person not motivated enough?
Yeah.
Or why did we make a simple hiring mistake?
Yeah.
At least that sort of analysis is there, which then gets lived in, and we hope to do it better the next time around. So
Great.